Hello one and all, and welcome to Behind the Glass. I'm your host, Sam, from the YouTube channel Seen Through Glass.
And I'm Tony from Gravelwood Car Sales.
Yes, you are. Each week we get together, we talk about cars, motorsport, F1, what else? Cars? We talk about cars. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on youtube.com/Behind the Glass. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And Tony, if people want to support this podcast, what should they do?
Watch it.
No. But also head to Patreon. You can support us on patreon.com/Behind the Glass. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To recap what's happening today, we did tease it slightly at the end of last week. We're doing we're going to call it a regular feature, aren't we, Tony? It's something we're going to try and do more of, which are these kind of deep dive, these special episodes, which essentially look at people's careers or lives online. We kicked it off with Miss Emma Walsh way back in the day, very successful, popular episode. We did one with you, Tony, when you collected your GT3 RS. Done one with Shmee 150.
It was a long time ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Done one with Shmee 150.
Which was very good.
We enjoyed it. We did one with me, where Tony was heavily applauded for being a fantastic co-host and questioner. And so we thought today we'd do it with you, Paul, now that you've been elevated to such a high standard of co-host.
Promoted.
Exactly.
Now about to get grilled.
Yeah, literally that. Be careful, because Tony, when he flips into like Michael Parkinson mode, it's quite scary. He just comes at you with all these left foot questions.
He was actually surprised. I mean, he was flapping at one point. Oh my God, where's this come from?
It's like live story.
Yeah, literally. Luckily, I'm the editor, so I could edit my own one. You're in for a bit of trouble, I think. But
I have no directorial control.
No, not at all.
Fantastic.
Yeah, essentially the point of these is to try and give a bit more of a backstory, a little bit more context, or a bit more insight into people that you, the audience, may have come across online. Because, you know, as much as we try and share our lives and what we do via social media, it's only a very small percentage of our actual existence, and often the stories behind the moments are way more interesting. And unfortunately, it is true, Paul, that you are one of the oldest, one of the titans of the online automotive vlogger world. Oldest, yeah. And the story is super interesting. I think most people don't know, especially the origins, how you started out and how you got to the level that you did, and or are. And yeah, I think it's great to be able to share that with people. So we're hopefully not going to ask any questions that you don't want to answer. You don't have directorial or editing.
I've not had any questions pre-approved. No. I've not had anything said to me.
But you can say, I choose not to answer that. At which point Tony will just go, you don't know.
No, you're answering it.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So we're just going to dive in. And I think really we have to start at the beginning, because there'll be many people who have joined your journey at different stages, myself included. But let's go right back to the beginning. What was the first YouTube video that you uploaded, and why?
I reckon the first video that I uploaded to YouTube was me jumping off a trampoline into a bush.
Was that
running
2 weeks
from
ago?
the police?
That literally sounds like your life. Running from the police. I said that sounds like it's Sunday afternoon.
I was about 15.
About right then, yeah.
So that was the content that I consumed on YouTube, was those trampoline compilations, because I had a trampoline in the garden. I was a little bit of a gymnast, so I was learning tricks.
I feel like we should pick up on that, but no, we'll skip past it. Go on, you're a little bit of a gymnast.
I would learn tricks and then film myself on the trampoline, and then that kind of evolved. Don't know whether that's an evolution into me jumping into bushes.
And I'm assuming this wasn't Supercars of London that this was uploaded to.
No, it wasn't. So that was on my first YouTube channel, which was called Sexy Man Bud Bud.
Not Jackass.
Hold on a sec. Sexy Man Bud Bud was your first. I feel like we've almost gone too far back in time. Like, I'm not sure.
I didn't even know this.
No, I had no idea that. I was really hoping to start with the origins of Supercars of London. I'm finding this fascinating though, so let's keep diving into it. Okay, so you're sort of circa 15 years old, YouTube's a thing, you're jumping into bushes, and you're like, wow, this is great. How did that evolve into, you know what we're going to do next week? Film Supercars.
So the Supercars came from a random summer holiday trip that I needed to do as a sort of pre-homework for my art GCSE. So myself and my dad went to London. We went to the V&A, the Victoria and Albert Museum in central South Kensington, actually.
Lovely place.
That's when I first saw...
Where Sam went to school.
An Aston Martin DB9.
Oh, what a car.
And
what
I was like, whoa, I've never seen one of these in real life before. And then we walked past Lamborghini London, and I saw a Lamborghini Gallardo, like the first time I'd ever seen one of them in the flesh. And I was like, where am I? Like, all I thought was you could see these cars on Top Gear or in Nuts or Zoo. Do you remember those magazines?
Oh, who doesn't?
Yeah. So I then decided to speak to my next door neighbour who was also into cars, and we would play Xbox, we'd play Project Gotham Racing, Need for Speed, all the classics. And I said, mate, I've just seen an Aston Martin and a Lamborghini.
Same age as you.
Yeah. Right. Let's go to London next Saturday. So we got the train. I think we got the train to like Bond Street, ended up walking down Park Lane, and I saw a green Murcielago just drive up. And I was like, what is this world? I'm literally in a computer game, like my dream game. I was seeing these cars. But at the time, I had a phone that had 0.3 megapixels on and it was just a camera, not a video camera. So I was like holding my phone up to this Lamborghini that was doing 40 miles an hour in the Park Lane. It would go... And the car had driven through the frame, and I'd got a photo of a tree.
And did you like cars at that point?
I was going to say.
Yeah, so cars came from Formula One.
Okay.
So the development has come from like my early passion, going back to like when I was a real child. It was animals that came into birds, which you've both experienced. Birds went into airplanes.
We have experienced birds, but we've experienced your passion for birds. Because I think most people have experienced birds.
No, because birds that fly or
birds that fly.
Right. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, because we've experienced both, right? Well,
sorry, I should have been more precise because it is quite a quirky.
We need to come back to that for sure. That's a later development in your life and where you've ended up with the channel. But
much later as well.
Yeah, but it's a good question, Tony, that you asked, because you say you go into London, you see DB9s, you see Murcielagos, so you knew what these cars were.
Oh yeah, yeah. So from planes, it went into Formula One because obviously the ages of like 8, 9, 10, your parents just latched onto any interest that you paid. So at Christmas, I was getting given Formula One VHS. I was getting given car books, and it was a car book that when I opened it, I saw a Murcielago. So that was about 2002. So I'd have been 11. So that really was when I discovered like road cars existing in that form. My dad had like some ropey old Volvo, and my mum had like a Peugeot. Like, so it really I'd never been exposed to a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. And so going into London 4 or 5 years later, having played Need for Speed and learning about all of these cars, YouTube was really in its infancy, and there wasn't actually that much content other than people jumping out of trees into bushes. It was like
which you were also doing.
Yeah.
So you were attempting to take photos on your dodgy phone, not taking very good photos. Skip us forward to I guess changing that into, well, let's film them, and sort of why was there ever a sort of, why were you filming? Why did you decide to make that sort of transition?
I filmed them to relive the moment, so I wanted to watch them back. So any opportunity I got to capture a loud supercar, which was really where my passion for Lamborghinis came from, because they were the loudest, driven by absolute lunatics. So every time we saw a Lamborghini, the majority of the time, I got a good video out of it. So I'd go home and I'd just sit there and watch it whilst my dad and brother would watch a football match. I was sitting there like rewatching the stuff that I'd recorded that day. I then started to run out of memory on my phone, so I uploaded it to my family computer, which then started to run out of memory and start to really slow down. And like the only way that I could then release the storage on the computer was upload it to YouTube.
Okay, so YouTube was always basically a storage facility for you.
It was a cloud.
Ahead of its time. And so did you brand it? Did you name it? Was it still Sexy?
It was still Sexy Man Bud.
Wow. Okay.
I cannot believe that, honestly. I mean, I wish I'd knew that before. And before all that, well, probably not best to talk about your background too in terms of your upbringing, but were you from a privileged background or a normal background or a poor background?
Had you been exposed to these kind of cars?
Yeah. What was your actual upbringing background?
I would say like a fairly normal.
Okay.
A fairly normal upbringing. So my mum worked in a school, or did she work at play? I think she worked in a play group.
Yeah.
And my dad had a full-time job. He worked for the council.
Yeah.
So we lived in. My mum still lives in a semi-detached house that I grew up in for the majority of my life.
Yeah.
And I basically got a job at. I think I got a job at 15 doing a paper round. So that was really like the first time I started to earn my own money.
Yeah.
Which I would spend on Xbox games every single week. I got paid like 25 quid a week. So I'd just go back in, exchange the game that I bought the week before because I'd completed it, put my £25 in on top of the game, and then I'd just take another game. So it was probably like, that was, I went to like a normal school. I played a lot of sport. Like my mum pretty much dedicated the summer holiday for me and my brother to go and we did 6 tennis tournaments every summer. So our summer holiday was 6 weeks. We would literally do 6 tennis tournaments. But yeah, like if we were to go out to a restaurant, it was because it was someone's birthday. I wouldn't say that we had an excessive upbringing, but I wouldn't say that we necessarily had
didn't live on beans on toast.
No. That was uni.
Which I did at some point. But it's interesting to listen because obviously you two have come from completely different backgrounds, yet you find yourself as really good pals, and you work in the same space. You do the same thing. So
for sure,
in a roundabout, you've come from completely different circles and they're met in the middle.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think again, maybe we'll dive into this at some point. We have completely different opinions on cars and lots of things in life, but I think that's sometimes why friendships work. But I think what I also see as interesting from that is that was the part of the fascination, these cars are on the road and look at the cars, or was it these people own these cars and they're driving them around and I've never seen this part of life? Because you say you come from what you considered a fairly normal upbringing. So does that mean that there weren't DB9s and Murcielagos cruising around your neighborhood? But do you know what I mean? Where was the fascination the cars or the people in the cars?
Did you want to be them people essentially?
Yeah. I think it was a combination of both.
Okay.
Because firstly, to see the cars in the flesh, it's the same as going to watch a live football match versus seeing it on the TV. It was like a live show that I had in front of me, especially during the summer when the cars came over from the Middle East. But then we started to get to know some of the people. Because we were in London every single weekend, I would be literally like in really basic clothes, like running after these cars.
No change there then.
yeah. But like the stark contrast between the normal clientele that was walking down Sloane Street of wearing a fur coat or a suit or going to these flashy events, and then all of a sudden they've got this kid run past them going, oh my God, like who's he just robbed? It was kind of like, I kind of felt like that's what
you were a mugger.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and my friends were like, guys, keep your stuff together.
I must have ran past him.
Check your phone, check your pockets, guys.
He's running down the road with the phone. Is that yours?
Tarquin. No, but anyway.
So there was definitely a couple of characters that we saw on a regular basis that were obviously locals to Knightsbridge, Mayfair, that we saw were young, driving cool Ferraris, Lamborghinis, that I then started to question what they did. Where did they get their money from, or how cool would it be to have that car at that age? That's where my first goal really came from. So I was probably 16 or 17 years old, and I just set myself a goal that I'd have a Lamborghini by 25. And I'd tell all of my friends at school, and again, they didn't come from wealthy backgrounds, and they all just laughed at me like, honestly, what are you talking about?
That's not a thing, man.
Yeah. So I saw the guys in London driving around in the supercars as a bit of inspiration and motivation to then set my own goals.
Did you think how you would be able to achieve that? Okay,
No,
so
not
you
at
just
all.
set yourself that goal, but you weren't like, I'm going to go in the city and make a ton of money. You were just, I'm going to achieve that goal and I'll figure out how to go.
I probably set that goal and then went and bought lottery tickets thinking that was like the easiest way of doing it. And I was convinced when I turned 16, because that's the age that you can play the lottery, or maybe it still is, I don't know.
It was then, yeah.
Yeah, so as soon as I turned 16, my first lottery ticket I bought and was convinced I was going to win. I was like, this is going to be a Daily Mail story.
Well, you were stupid then as well.
Yeah. I'd spend the money. I was like, I'm going to have this car. I'm going to have that car.
He literally does that now. He gets a call from a brand. We're going to do this great campaign. Guys, I'm buying an SVJ. Okay, so you had this kind of goal that you'd set for yourself. You were fascinated by this world of cars, supercars driving around on the streets, but you were also then incredibly sporty and sort of focusing in that direction. The videos that you were uploading to YouTube to, use as a cloud storage device, were they getting viewed by anyone else? Were you sharing them anywhere? What was going on in that side of things?
Obviously, they were public. As in, if you went in and typed in Lamborghini or something, the video would come up. I would probably tell one or two people at school, hey, check out this car that I saw, because it was quite a nerdy thing to do back then. Whereas all of my friends in the football team on the weekend were borrowing their older brother's fake ID, going down and getting a few beers or whatever down the park and having pulling an all-nighter. Whereas I was getting an early night because I wanted to go to London the next day. So I was charging my phone up, or at some point my video camera, but I couldn't tell anyone. It was the most embarrassing thing being at school, trying to figure your own way out, trying to work out who you are. And one of the things that I love doing, I was almost embarrassed by.
Standing around on street corners, filming people drive their cars.
Yeah, probably at that point as well, maybe because it was so early on, it probably had the same stigmatism as a train spotter or something like that, where although actually I don't think train spotting is similar to cars now. It's really huge, but back then it was look at that geek.
It wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't a thing. There wasn't really social media was in its infancy, and car spotting wasn't really known of. So you must have been one of very few people, and that was kind of what I was going to come on to. Then is you and you said your friend that you would go into town with. Were you the only people there? Did you bump into other? Okay, you should just you two walking around, seeing cars, filming it or photographing it, uploading it for storage, and going home and being like, "Oh, that was a great weekend. I saw Murcielago."
I couldn't have felt more self-conscious doing it as well.
Okay, so because there's so much to get through, let's
jump forward.
Let's jump forward a little bit, because what I really want to understand is how do we go from this, clear passion, you're right, slightly niche hobby, which seems to be almost like a sort of a side interest to what you're really doing in your life, which is sports and school and things like that. At what point do you start to see that as something you want to do more of? Do you see growth on the channel? When does Supercars of London theoretically sort of begin?
Supercars of London.
Sorry. Before you answer that, let's get a bit about education first, because that normally develops into, if you start to go to the job bit, because that's where you're heading towards now, right?
Yeah, you're right, but I think there's going to be a big crossover, right?
Yeah.
Time-wise, because he was only 15 or 16 when he was telling us about going in anyway.
So you left school at 16?
No. So I stayed on. I did A levels up until 18. Took a year out, so I took a gap year, even though.
Chundered everywhere.
On the ganja.
And I went to uni. So when I went to uni in my first year, everyone else in my year pretty much was the year below me.
Right.
And then did 3 years at uni, graduated, and there is a bit of a crossover, because basically I can't remember in what year it was when Google bought YouTube, but it was around that time when
Google it.
My computer's been playing up today. I use my phone.
When basically they announced that they would start paying people to upload videos to YouTube.
Right. But you was fairly new into your journey at that point.
2006.
2006. So I was 15. Yeah. So maybe I'd been uploading to YouTube maybe 18 months.
Oh, right.
So that's when Supercars of London was born. The moment that they announced there was a partnership opportunity where you could be paid to upload, it was the obvious progression.
Right.
Because we were doing it anyway.
But you must have been getting views, because if it was just you and your mate, so you must have been getting, 10, 15, 50, 100 views?
I would say between 50 and 1,000 views.
I mean, that's pretty nuts infancy of YouTube
Yeah.
for some random spots. So
It was more so like I was telling my mates, hey, go and check this video out, like go on YouTube later and watch this video. So then I would go on YouTube later to see whether he watched it, because then I'd be able to work out, well, I watched it 7 times and it's got 7 views, so if he's watched it, it's got 8 views. And I'd go back on, it's got 52, and I was like, who's watched this?
Yeah.
Like where is the audience coming from? And I then sat down with Zach, who was at the time best friend, next door neighbour. We basically did everything together. So we were going into London, and we both loved there was a thrill of going into London and not knowing what you were going to see. And on a good day, you might see 2 Lamborghinis, 5 Ferraris, a couple of Aston Martins. On a bad day, you might not see anything, and you'd go home having spent your entire day, walked about 10 miles, and not got a new video on your phone. And so we sat down, we submitted this YouTube partnership form, in which was basically a business plan. So you had to tell them how much you were going to invest, how much time you were going to spend, what your targets were in terms of subscribers and views, how many videos were you going to upload. It was a real process that you had to go through, to YouTube.
to apply to their partner program, right?
Yeah. It was basically, we had to submit a business plan to them as to how hard we were going to work and whether that was enough for them to accept us onto the program. So it was a real first evolution of what we know YouTube to be today. And that was when Supercars of London was born. So I shut down Sexy Man Bud Bud. I think it still exists.
I hope so.
I think it still exists. There aren't any videos on there.
Okay.
But basically, we then re-uploaded all of our previous content that we had shot over the last 2 years to Supercars of London, just to populate it, because we were like, at least we'll have 150 videos on the channel to start off with, so that we can at least start generating some momentum and money. And this was around the time where I would have been 16, 17, so I had a job at Next. So I was basically selling home furniture, and I was like, if I can earn a little bit more than what I earn at Next with YouTube, that'd be cool.
Did you think that was possible? So those early days, did they give you any indication of what your earnings could be?
No, they didn't give you of what it could be. What they did say is the minimum amount of money that you have to earn before they pay out is £60.
Okay, so you had to earn £60, and then after
video.
that,
No.
in general,
right. In general, and I reckon it probably took 4 months
to earn £60.
To earn £60.
Okay, and how much were you uploading at that point?
We were probably going into London, and I would say on average uploading 3 videos, 4 videos a weekend.
And what were those videos? I mean, is it 12-minute vlogs? Or?
No. 15-second raw clips. Start, the car drives past, stop, upload it.
Okay.
And you were paid per view or per minute then? How was YouTube?
It was per view.
Right.
It was really basic.
Right.
And I don't even think there was much of an algorithm.
Okay. Right.
You put it out there, your subscribers saw it, and if you searched for it, you also saw it.
Right.
And so you say subscribers, you'd launched this, so you got approved on the partner program. They came out and said, tick. You had this channel. It was a new channel, so Sexy Man Bud Bud's audience.
So, yeah. Had to transfer.
So how did you do that? Because you're starting all over again. I mean, the thought for me right now in this current climate of YouTube, it would have been terrifying to be like, I'll start a whole new channel. So how did you build that audience? Did they know that content? How did you get those views again?
Just uploaded.
And
just had to start again.
Okay.
And on Sexy Man Bud Bud, I had one video that had 14,000 views. Yeah.
Okay.
But like you said, it was completely different than the way it operated. So it was probably the best thing you done by just loading a load of videos on, in just to get you going kind of thing,
And we just thought that Supercars of London was the obvious name. We played around with all sorts of different names, but we just thought it literally did exactly what it said it would. It was Supercars in London, and at that time we didn't know what else was going to go what else was going to go on.
So you'd crossed that barrier of the first £60. So we passed that. I mean, how regularly is money coming in then? 4 months to get 60 quid.
I reckon it took probably the first year. I reckon we probably earned 200 to 300 quid.
You got half with your mate.
Yeah.
Because half. Because he's got half with his mate.
then out of nowhere,
Just 2 pairs of trainers. so you're back to front. You just had a nice day out.
Yeah,
we ended up having 2 videos on youtube.com homepage.
Oh wow.
Is that good? I mean,
So anyone in the world type in youtube.com at the time, you would be fed 2 Supercars of London videos.
Oh, right.
One of a Ferrari Enzo and one of a Bugatti Veyron. And those videos went from 500 views to 100,000 views in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Wow. And so this was towards the end of the year, or like this
Yeah, it
was
was around December time.
okay. And did they earn money, or they just got big views?
I reckon in December we earned like 1,200 quid.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
had a massive jump.
I'm quitting next.
And how old was Supercars of London at that point when you got to December?
It would. How old was Supercars of London? Maybe even a year.
Right. So in the first year, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
were subscribers a thing at that time? Were you building subscribers? Did it matter, or you were just views per video?
It was, for me, it was views per video. Subscribers were a thing. I wouldn't even be able to pick numbers out of the air as to where we were. All I remember, I think, coming out of university in 2013, I reckon I was around 45, 50,000.
You're still at uni at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in this kind of period where suddenly now there's monetary value to the videos. Okay, small theoretically, but there's potential. You've seen a couple of videos. I would definitely say go viral at that early stage.
Yeah.
You're doing it with Zach. So are you spending more and more time dedicated? Are you sort of waking up thinking about Supercars of London, or have you still got the other hobbies, uni, sport, things like that?
I was still doing a lot of sport, but I would always look for an opportunity to go to London. For me, that was weirdly my biggest passion. And it was the thrill of not knowing what you were going to see. The reason why I'm saying that now is because when Instagram was introduced, everything changed.
Dun, dun, dun. Join us in partner. It's a very interesting thing. And I think this is why your story in particular is so fascinating, because it really crosses over so many sort of eras of social media, but also especially within this automotive space. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we're kind of now approaching the sort of end of your uni life, or sort of midway through uni.
Yeah.
Have you now got competitors? Did you Shmi must have been sort of on the scene at this point?
Tim was around, I would say, throughout uni. I definitely remember him being like prominent around uni. So every single holiday that I had, which when you go to uni is quite a lot,
Every Thursday.
I was literally going to London.
Okay.
So I wouldn't come home. I'd barely see anyone. So I had all of my friends at uni who then just dispersed and went back to their homes, which was all around the UK. I still had some school friends, but I would literally just go to London.
As a hobby? Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. As a hobby.
So you're just purely doing it because you just loved it. You just loved going.
Yeah.
Was there ever a thought of, I need to feed content to YouTube, or I want to get a video with big views?
No. The only time that I started to feel that was once I left uni. I kind of felt like I was in this little inflatable safety net at university, where I was like, I'm going through education, I'll get a degree, I'll come out, I'll do something with it, whilst I'm going to London because I love going to see the cars.
And what happened? You come out of uni.
So
did you get a degree?
There was a yeah, I did get a degree.
Well done.
There was a moment, I think I was watching, I can't remember what it was. I was in a lecture at university and this light bulb just flicked. I walked out of the lecture.
Oh, right.
Because I was
Drop mic moment.
Yeah. I literally was watching. It was a video, and it was I can't remember if it was Peter Jones. It felt like it was one of the Dragons who was being interviewed, and he said something. I can't really remember what it is, but I was like, oh my god, I'm sat on something here, and I need to do something about it. And I went home and I wrote a business plan
For Supercars of London.
Supercars of London.
So you'd spent all that time at uni, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years at uni. You come out of uni with a degree. Congratulations. I mean, I can't even spell degree.
Me neither, mate.
That's a lie.
No, I have a degree.
No, but
I can spell it, yes.
If he can't, he'll get someone who can.
My butler can.
So you come out and with this degree, did you have a path of of where you wanted to go next? As in, what did you think? Right, I now pursue the career that I studied, or was it, oh my God, the light bulb moment? I need to pursue YouTube.
I need to pursue YouTube.
Right, fine.
So I literally packed up my stuff on the final day. Once I'd done my exams, I packed up my things from uni into my Vauxhall Astra and drove straight to central London
to create content
and filmed. Yeah.
So
that was April 2013. I went to London every day from midday till 2-3 a.m. until end of September that year.
Uploaded a video every day.
Uploading videos. And then it got to September and I started to realize I wasn't going to live off the content I just created in the summer. I needed to sustain a level of content output through the winter when the weather was bad.
Okay, so you were starting to understand the financial algorithm or beast that was YouTube.
Yeah.
So you were starting to see patterns in earnings and you sort of started to realize, okay, I've got to achieve a certain number of views to reach this kind of money or
Yeah. I started to realize what I needed to do to sort of like baseline earn 800 to 1,000.
I would imagine it was fairly stable then, right? Because it was probably not complicated like it is now. So
yeah,
was your monthly income was probably fairly stable, as in you could probably rely on it. I know you boys can't now because it's a shit show. But yeah,
well said, Tony.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is back then, because it was simple.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay, so you touched on a second ago that you sort of gone home after your light bulb moment and written up a business plan. So what was that? So was that to get investment? Was that to build out the channel? Like, what was that business plan for? What were you going to use it for?
It was more of a content plan.
Okay.
I thought that I needed to create what felt like a TV series. I'd looked at Top Gear and I'd looked at Fifth Gear, and I liked shifting towards Top Gear that felt like it was about Jeremy, James and Richard, and they had the cars, whereas Fifth Gear, it was all about the cars. Like, you learnt a lot about the cars on Fifth Gear. Top Gear, it felt more of an entertainment show, and that's kind of where my passion lied with creating car content. I wanted to somehow involve my journey in with the cars.
Because up until this point, it was still just short clips of cars driving past. Had the content evolved at all? It was
not at all.
Okay,
not
so it's still just like 20 seconds, a minute maybe, long clips of a car driving
just
past.
drive-bys. Literally drive-bys. So
revs.
The only sort of evolution of that content was I managed to stitch between like 10 and 15 clips together, and I'd do like the best sounds of the Ferrari Enzo.
Okay.
And so you get to see 10, 15 clips of that.
And at that point, you wasn't talking or face on camera or nothing like that, because I know from Sam, he spoke long before he started to show his face. So was that the same for you?
No. The moment where I put my face on camera, Shmi had told me about a week before in London, you need to be on camera.
Right.
So
wait, let me dive into that straight away.
Yeah.
So had you and Tim then started to build up a relationship? What was your interactions to that point?
So
how did you meet?
We would have bumped into each other in London, but even at that time, he didn't know who Supercars of London was, and no one did. So everyone was kind of now...
No change there either.
There was more people, like, we're bypassing the growth in car spotting, because for many years it really was me and Zach. Every now and again there'd be a couple of others that would pop up who we became friendly with, and then as it started to evolve, you may have 10 car spotters in London, but again, we weren't really going around as a gang. We would be individually walking around, and every now and again you'd bump in, you'd see another camera and be like, oh cool, like
spotters or photographers?
A mixture.
Right, okay.
The likes of Alex Penfold, Tim, myself, Zach, and there was a few others who you'd then just go, oh hey, like, what's your YouTube channel? And they'd tell you their YouTube channel, and they'd be like, what's yours? And it's, oh, Supercars of London. Oh, no way, like, that's you. Like, so there was this real, like, almost like non-identity
mystique to the
brand.
channel.
Yeah.
And actually, I know a funny story about this, that very early on, maybe it was Zach, was trolling Tim a little bit, right? In a sort of semi-competitive.
He was so aggressive.
As in, like, this is our competitor. And Tim was like, who is this Supercars of London? Like, attack. And sort of had this negative connotation. So then when he finally met you, he was like, bro, why are you so horrible to me?
And I was there like, what, mate? What?
Like, what are you on about? I remember hearing that story.
And when me and Zach decided to, I was so heavily driven by YouTube, and I had this plan, I had this business plan, and Zach went to university in York, which is a long way away, so he didn't have the same flexibility and luxury of being able to access London. So when we decided that I would then take Supercars of London and go on and crack on, one of the things that I had to do, and I'm sure Zach won't mind me saying this, was I basically had to message a lot of people to say sorry. Because like when we were like 17, 18 and this money started to come in.
Going in on everyone.
He was such a troll. I love it. Okay, so we probably did gloss past the fact that, you know, you'd taken the channel on by yourself at this point. So once you'd started it as a hobby together, you know, this was now becoming your kind of baby. And so you and Tim had bumped into each other. On a terms of level or scale, where was Supercars of London versus Schmidt? Because you must have been still two of the biggest channels, surely.
Yeah. There was, we must have been, I think we were similar on subscribers, but because I had this huge catalogue of videos with a couple of viral videos in there as well, especially the video, I think it's called World's Dumbest Rich Man or something crazy like that. One of the first like super clickbait videos.
No, we didn't meet till about 5 or 6 years.
Don't give yourself that kind of plaudit. You're not that rich. You are that dumb.
Right, I'm not. It was the dumb bit I was thinking of.
But obviously Tim went from an Audi S5 to, did he go to the Aston Martin next into the R8?
Yeah.
I met him. Right. I met him when he had the R8. That was the first time when I met him.
Okay.
And we went, I met up with him. We jumped into the R8 and he took me for a spin, and that was like the first time that we had both really spent a lot of time together, face to face. But then we went back and got the Abarth, because actually he preferred driving the Abarth because it was easier to nip around with. And when we were in that, we were driving nearly around Harrods, and we were talking about YouTube, and he said, like the best thing you can do is actually talk and show your face on camera.
So he must have seen some engagement from that. There must have been something which he was tracking and saying that's a success route. Because if you were on similar numbers and you had these viral videos, surely you were like, oh no, man, I'm good cracking on with what I'm doing.
Yeah. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified because at this point, still, it was a secret to so many people, even people at uni,
especially your mates.
Yeah. So that was the one thing that I was terrified by: putting my face on camera and actually like revealing myself.
It's being a nerd
to be like me behind Supercars of London. I was terrified of what all of my mates would think.
And actually, it's the only thing that I can probably relate to, as in coming into this space where you both said exactly the same thing. The best thing you can do for me was to put me on camera. And it was 100% right, because and then I become the face of the business from that point. So it's the only thing I can relate, because it's not my world. I've come into it. So, but yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, on social, it's personality driven.
Yeah.
And from a brand's point of view, if you look at the likes of Adidas or Nike, to everyone, they're just a logo.
Yeah.
And there are incredible people and characters behind the brand who fundamentally run it. But it's so hard to relate because you have no idea who they are.
And that's why they pay celebrities huge amounts of money to endorse or advertise their products.
Associate
people to the brand. Oh, I like Justin Bieber, so I'll go and buy that Balenciaga cake.
Or YouTubers now.
Yeah. Or YouTubers now. Who knows? Okay. So we're getting to a point now where is it your full-time job, or it's
no.
Okay? So but you've left uni.
I've left uni.
You're giving it your all because you see that there's an opportunity.
Did you have a job?
I had created within the sort of the business that I'd created that I called YouTube. I also offered like a consultancy. I was basically a social media consultant,
right,
to car brands, so that I could run their pages through my pages, which were growing. It was mainly Twitter and YouTube, which is where SB Race Engineering came along, where I would help them guide their pages to more followers.
Okay, so just to tap into that for those who aren't social media adept. So what you're saying is you would say to SB Race Engineering, right, pay me a consultancy fee, and then I will shout out SB Race Engineering on my Supercars of London pages.
I'll come to the business,
send an audience to you.
I'll take your photos, I'll upload them to your Instagram. I will then share your posts on my pages, and it became somewhat of a full-time job because I was able to bring 4 or 5 companies in that helped facilitate the YouTube ad revenue, which obviously fluctuated month to month.
Okay,
whilst creating content for your platform at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it was a win-win from you. You got a more stable income. You were on a sort of retainer almost with these smaller companies. These were sort of small independent companies, which, as I say, then also were giving you opportunities to create content. So how many do you think you had? You said for four or 5 of these trickling along?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And without being rude, what were you offering?
Do you want me to ask this?
No.
Because I'll just come out and say it if you want.
As in, why were these companies trusting you? So what were your numbers? What was because you were still theoretically a young kid in a new space with not necessarily a massive thing to back you up. How did you manage to convince these companies to pay you money?
I think I had around, I'll tell you how, I tell you exactly how I convinced them. I thought that it was my way of affording a supercar. So what I actually said to them was I sold them fundamentally thin air by saying, I'm going to buy a supercar and I will put your logo on the car as like a Formula One race livery, and I'll drive it around on my YouTube channel that's got 75,000 subscribers, which at that time was big in the automotive space.
You started to grow by this point.
But I had no way of buying this car. So to me, the best way of doing that was have 4 or 5 different companies that could pay me a small retainer that would then equate to enough money to pay a monthly payment on a car.
Okay.
That's how my first supercar came about. So fundamentally, I managed to build a consultancy business that funded the monthly payments for the Audi R8.
And their thought was we're going to have a guy running our social media, we're going to get some exposure, and we're going to have a sort of moving billboard going around the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes a bit more sense as to why someone would buy into it. Still, it's impressive. I think business acumen, wouldn't you agree, Tony? For, At that point, the resource and the thought to go and do that, and also convince someone, because heck, even today we struggle to convince companies. I
still walk into meetings now and feel inferior because of my age.
And the industry we're in, a lot of companies and individuals still don't understand social media.
Yeah.
And so we're going back, 2015?
2000, no, it would have been 2013, 2014.
I mean, this was a time when social media and YouTube, this was a very new era. And as you say, 75,000 subscribers made you a big, big channel within the space, but still it's an unknown space. So to convince small independent companies to give you a bit of money, I think is impressive. And it's definitely when I first noticed or knew about the channel, my first supercar series.
The R8, I still think, is probably in my history on YouTube the biggest turning point, in terms of, it was a dream of mine always to document the life of owning a supercar, because I'd seen it on YouTube, and I thought, if I had a car on my driveway, I have got content sitting on my driveway. I can film anything with that car. No one would have seen it before, and it gives people an insight, like me 3 or 4 years ago, into what it's like to own that car. So that was really where the motivation came from. My first supercars, like, rather than going to London and hope that I'm going to see anything, it was, I can have something on my driveway and then create a series of content on my own car. And the R8 really was that starting point.
So up until that point, your sole goal would have been, I need to earn enough money to get the supercar, right? Because that was your dream. 25, you wanted to earn that money. Once you'd achieved that, you've got your supercar now. Where was did you have a goal at that point, or did you think, right, where did you take it from there? Where do you go from there?
The goal was always Lambo by 25.
Okay.
So the R8 really for me was a stepping stone.
How old was you when you got the R8?
23.
Fine.
23.
It was a V8 one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's technically not a supercar. But
I knew you were going to say that.
Even at the time, there was definitely people that that said that. There was a lot of people that said that. But I still wanted the Lamborghini. So I bought the R8. I ran it. I reckon I probably ran it for about 6 months before I started to come up with a way in which I could make more money.
And you was earning enough money to run it as well, by the way. Right, okay.
Just. Because that's what I was going to say. Like, you know, again, blind confidence in the sense of, right, this is the content angle that I need to push this channel further forward and keep growing it. I need to get a supercar. So firstly, how did you know about the financing? But secondly, like, right, I'm just going to go and find someone else to pay for my financing. I'm going to find these companies and just figure it out. Was there moments of doubt or questioning or
every day?
Okay.
And actually, I'd like to add to that, without being too personal, how the flipping hell did you fund a supercar at 23, mate?
Exactly. I think because that's probably the title of my podcast. Oh, go on. What were you saying?
Is it my dad's name?
Oh, right. Oh.
I can get finance.
Okay.
So you're a rich kid then?
Yeah. It all comes out. The truth.
Here we go.
Yeah. Paul's dad paid for everything. So it was in his name, and I guess you said to your dad, like, Dad, I've got these 4 sponsors. I've got the money coming in.
I set up a standing order.
Okay.
So for the day that the money came out of my dad's account, it went back in.
I hope he wasn't as hard to convince as he was as his dad.
I was going to say, how did that come? Because I can imagine, given what you said at the beginning of the episode, going to your dad and like, Dad, I'm buying an Audi R8. He must have been like, what? You're mad.
We sat down. I basically had to pitch it to him.
Get him drunk.
I had to pitch it to him as another business plan. As in, this was how I was going to take my business to the next level.
I got a small loan of $1 million.
and he was, to be fair, very supportive. He had no idea whether he was going to get the loan approved, as in like the finance agreement approved,
or if he was going to lose his house.
That would be a very different episode today, wouldn't it? The guy who tried to launch Supercars of London.
So there was not only a horrendous gut feeling of I've just taken my own risk, the biggest risk I've ever taken from a business point of view, but also from a personal point of view, because business and personal overlaps so much and consumes your entire life. But I had this huge weight over my shoulder as well, that I also couldn't not let this succeed, because otherwise it's like also going to affect my dad
and the family. Yeah.
Well, that's the disappointment bit, as in your dad's took the risk at that point on you.
Yeah.
By the way, on your say so. But the reason why you didn't want it to fail was the disappointing that your mum and dad would have been in you.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so you said that the R8 you think is still the sort of, even today, the biggest sort of moment in Supercars of London history, or the turning point at least.
Yes, in terms of like the interactions that I have on a daily basis with people all over the world.
That was still the key.
Yeah.
So I must have met you, I don't know, not too long into that journey, because the R8 was blue. You must have had it for 6, 9, maybe even 12. Did you keep the car that long?
Yeah, I kept it for 18 months.
Yeah, so I met you at some point in that journey, and between sort of when I met you, your channel was already on quite a big upspring. You know, I discovered it with the start of that sort of journey. I probably was already aware of Shmee. There weren't too many other sort of what we would call supercar vloggers or vloggers filming a car world over and above Evos and Chris Harris on cars and stuff like that. So, you know, I was aware of Tim, I was aware of you. But in that period from when you bought the R8 really into going into Garda, maybe AMG, I think your channel, it's fair to say, really exploded, right?
Yeah,
you know, I mean, so Tim at this point had probably taken quite a few steps on from you. So he was what, 300,000 subscribers, something like this at that point?
Yeah, I reckon he was around the 500,000 mark.
Okay.
And I remember I hit 100,000. It took about 6 years to hit 100,000 subscribers.
6 years to hit 100,000. That's mad, isn't it?
And then it took an extra 4 months. So it took 6 years and 4 months to get another 100,000.
On what year was it you two met?
2016, 2015?
No.
2015.
Yeah, 2015.
2015. And yeah, for sure, from the moment I met you, and we're going to move now into what I'm going to call your daily vlogging era.
Oh yeah.
You know, your channel just absolutely seemed to blow up. And, you know, it's in my head, I always refer to it as you went from 150,000 subscribers to 350,000 subscribers in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of mad and wild time. And I suppose for you, as you saw this crazy growth and your channel evolved into, daily vlogging content, you were now an owner, well, at least of an R8. Maybe you'd bought the Lambo, you'd achieved your goal.
The crossover period between, because I started to daily vlog right at the end of my ownership of the R8.
Okay. And what inspired that? Where did that decision come from?
It came from seeing YouTubers daily vlog. And I didn't realize it.
Non-car YouTubers.
Non-car YouTubers, yeah. And I didn't realize at the time what I'd actually created, because for 6 years I'd not shown my face. And then all of a sudden I've come out of nowhere and got this supercar and documented
Supercar?
Audi R8 ownership. Car. Sports car.
Sports car.
And I think there was an appetite that I didn't identify. I didn't identify the appetite, but I think people were just intrigued into my life. And I had thousands of questions every week on what do I do to get that car? How did you do it? And there was this crazy, almost tsunami of interest into everything that I did. And for about a month and a half, I basically filmed everything. I filmed myself eating breakfast. I filmed myself in bed.
Do you remember the photocopying episode at SB?
I remember the photocopying. It was
a brutal episode. Yeah. We all sat through it though.
And I think I discovered an algorithm in YouTube. That was the first time that I realized what was going on, because this was when you got paid per minute watched. And my ad revenue went from, I would say, maybe like 2,000 to 7-8 times that
per month
in a month.
Okay.
So was it at that point it's then turned from a hobby into a business, or No,
I even then I was still thinking this is just.
You still had a job then?
A load of fun. No, there was a turning point around the daily vlog time. I was still at SB a lot, and I still helped them out a lot, but there was a turning point when I shifted the R8, because I basically sold it for what I paid for it, and that was really the amazing moment where I realized that I had all of the money from paying the finance over that 18-month period in the R8 that I was going to get back, and that was how I was able to.
And your deposit.
And the deposit, which I was able to then push into the Lamborghini, and that was how I was able to get the Lamborghini. It was around then that I then had to basically tell everyone, because we did a 2-week road trip in the Gallardo F-Type, Shmi and his GT4, that I then said, I'm going to give this a go. So that was really, that was the first time.
So you knew each other when he really went balls deep.
When we met, you were definitely still working, definitely with SB, but also I feel like a few others. Like you had responsibilities. I don't think I remember you saying to me, I'm giving it all up, but what I was going to say is I noticed, I think you had a real enthusiasm for creating these vlogs at that time. I think there was an excitement around you about what you were doing. There was an interest in everything going on. You had, I think, a unique perspective of stuff, whilst Shmi has always been Shmi and stayed true to Shmi, and his content today is the same as it was 10 years ago, and that's what made his channel so strong. You were very fresh, and I think people found that exciting, but you genuinely seemed to buzz off it. You were fresh of ideas, fresh of perspective, fresh of angles at that time. So I don't think I saw you being like, I'm going to give that up and do this. You just seemed like a sort of bit of a bundle of YouTube energy at that point.
Yeah. I reckon for at least the first 2 months of daily vlogging, it was that. And then I started to realize just how unsustainable that life is.
As a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So just to jump it on that, because I think it's less and less daily vlog now, but most people, this audience are very good at understanding it. But yeah, your day was consumed with, what am I going to film? Start filming it, film all day, edit it, go to sleep, start again the next day.
Yeah, there would
convert
random Saturdays or Sundays where we didn't have any plans. Obviously, at the time, I was with my girlfriend, and literally I'd be like, we've got to do something. Like, we've got to get up, we've got to film. And so we'd go and play mini golf. And then we'd go to the trampoline park and I'd film it all because I'd drive the R8 there. And that was the video. And then I'd go to bed. I'd wake up at about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd edit it till 9:30 and then pick the camera up and go again.
And so Sam mentioned about your determination and your drive at that point when you'd met. Was that fueled by you, the love of YouTube, or simply the financial gains that you'd seen from you being, at one point and then going to the next point?
It was definitely the fact that I was almost living my dream.
Right. Okay.
Of every day I could drive a Lamborghini.
Right.
That was it, and the money was a byproduct. The subscribers, the views was a byproduct, and at that time, all I wanted to do was continue to share and document this journey, because I was probably one of the first people on YouTube that even documented Lamborghini ownership. It was really, really fresh and new, and that's what I love doing, because I never had that when I was growing up. I didn't have someone to follow to learn so much about that insight into supercar ownership.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw a couple of tougher questions your way, and don't let me put words in your mouth, and maybe this is me projecting rather than anything else, but you started off with this interest and excitement of seeing cars being driven around London, right? You were filming these clips, you would go home and watch just to get that buzz again. You'd now somehow, in a very short amount of time, built this huge audience and put yourself into one of those cars, and you were living that dream. And I was witnessing that from afar and seeing you on this journey. And then there seemed to be a slight switch, which maybe it's further down the line, AMG GT or even the Huracan, where it seemed like there was a discord or a cut between this life which you loved witnessing or maybe enjoyed experiencing in the Gallardo and the R8, and then actually the reality of it, in the sense where filming a Murcielago drive past you and imagining what that person was experiencing, then actually experiencing it didn't seem to always meet up in your mind. Was there a moment where you sort of went, did you notice that? Did you feel like you were just, the daily vlogging had taken a buzz out of you? Was actually the reality not what you'd built it up to be? Was YouTube tougher? Like, what was that kind of moment? Because I definitely feel like just on a car, purely on a car experience, you didn't seem to always love driving the cars as much as you did filming them. I feel like your best videos, your most excitement came from spotting in Monaco.
100%.
Yeah.
Even today.
Was YouTube taking its toll on you, essentially?
There was a combination of things that I've never really talked about. The day after I collected my Lamborghini,
The Gallardo,
I woke up and went,
I don't want it.
not necessarily. I went like, what do I do now?
Yeah, right, okay.
Because for 8 years, I'd had this goal.
You're 25 then?
No, I was still 24.
Oh, right.
Smashed it.
So,
well done, boy.
So yeah, I did it, and I'd been working towards this. This is all I'd been talking about on YouTube, and there was this level of excitement, and maybe it was like this huge high of actually achieving it, and then waking up in the morning to have the reality of, firstly, what do I do now? Like, in terms of what's my next goal? Like, as on a personal level, like, where's my motivation? At the same time, it was also, can I afford this? Again, like, I was just putting all of my eggs in one basket and risking everything for the sake of achieving my goal, because like every piece of money that I earned was then going back into that car. And our road trip, do you remember the Lamborghini road trip? The 2 weeks where you were in F-Type.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we were in a WhatsApp group or whether I had a private conversation with Shmi.
No, we sat down at a table. I know what you're going to say.
And I said, I actually can't afford to do this trip. And Tim offered to pay for it. Yeah.
I'm sure we were at a dinner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm sure. Maybe it was a WhatsApp, but in my head, for some reason.
So I just bought this Lamborghini. So online, this is the prime example of how skewed YouTube, Instagram, social media is, in terms of we're putting out like the best 1% of our day online, which is where a lot of people get hooked up.
Yeah.
Is I just bought this Lamborghini, and the first thing that I thought is, like personally, where's my motivation now? Like what's the next step for me? And secondly, I can't afford to actually do anything with this car, or like I can't afford to do this road trip that we had planned. And
because we had that and then Dubai. And that was what it was. We planned up 2 months worth of trips. Yeah. And I think you had some invoices for some either brand deals or maybe some work that was outstanding, and you were stressing. I think my take from, and super honest insight, but I think also my take was that from, as I say, witnessing you, I felt like you were still buzzing and loving filming cars, especially on that Monaco trip. You were down in Casino. Actually,
that's where
driving the Gallardo didn't seem to live up to almost that reality as well. That's the sort of the passion side as well as the business side.
Yeah, the passion for cars for me definitely comes from seeing everything drive past and experiencing things from the third person. And actually, there's probably a part in. Obviously, I'm incredibly lucky to have been able to experience, drive, passenger in all sorts of amazing cars on different roads, different countries, tracks, everything. Nothing beats the buzz of actually turning around a corner in central London and bumping into a car that you never thought that you would see. And
that would come from your early days as well, because in your childhood you had already said that you'd never ever seen what you'd seen, and then you went to London and you was exposed by all these cars. So you were just in your head psychologically reliving your youth. That was where your original buzz come from, and that was what you was trying to get to all the time,
chasing that high,
even now, the most enjoyable videos that I film are either like car spotting in Monaco or going into London and just driving around London and seeing what's around.
I never see you as excited as I do or passionate unless we're doing those kind of things. And that's not to say that over the years, you yourself, have created epic bits of content, and I want to move on to, in a second, what I'm going to call your next era, but still, across all the times that I've known you, that's for sure where I see that buzz and that passion, and still today. And I think, when we spoke, Tony, I definitely analysed for me, and that's why I don't want to sort of project too much, but I think analysed for myself, following that YouTube churn for a little bit, getting caught up in the buying, wrapping, exhaust, selling, because that was the thing to do. That's where the excitement was. That's where the audience was. That's where the money was. And it took a while for all of us to step back and go, actually, is that working for me? Is that working for my channel? And so, yes, let's get on to, well, we've got to talk about drifting, but there was a definite shift where you'd gone to the daily vlogging. We now have the Supercar Live, the Huracan rear wheel drives and all these different bits and bobs. But I saw a change where you almost went back, I think, to the early R8 days of sort of partnering with brands, like partnering with companies, being more of a business focused entity than just a vlogger. And at least, we see it now with partnerships you do with Grenade and other companies where that seems to be more where you get your buzz. Is that right?
100%. Because for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, or where should we call, what is it, like digital marketing or brand collaborations, brand partnerships facilitate me living dreams, because there's no way that even whilst I had the Lamborghini, the AMG GTS, there wasn't enough income to reinvest. I reinvested everything, and still do now, where I could have a pot of cash to go and do the wildest, craziest videos that I've always dreamt of doing, because the creative side of me always has a list of videos I want to film. And obviously, as I have the ability and access to drive more and more cars, the creatives get more and more ridiculous as I kind of climb that ladder to continually get the best videos. I always want to have this trajectory of like continuously evolving content and come up with the craziest ideas. And it became a point where it was around maybe 250,000 subscribers, where I started to be approached by brands who were offering money that I couldn't even imagine having, and they were able to help facilitate me to create the next dream video. And that's where it came from, like the BOTB bucket list series that I did. That was an idea that I had of, well, if you do achieve your dream, of owning a supercar, what do you do with it? Like, where do you go? And so when BOTB said, hey, like, we'd love to partner with you if there's a way in which we can operate our brand and what we do in selling tickets to buy a supercar, how would you promote us? And I said, well, BOTB winners win their dream car. How about I create a bucket list series of what I would do if I won a car on BOTB and share that with my audience? So that was the buzz that I got from a creative point of view.
So it's clear from that point, from what you've just said, that firstly you sat down, you're all together at the table. I can't afford this. Was that at the point, because I know this from you, was that at the point where YouTube had kind of completely done you all in and you just weren't earning the money and you felt that you had to reinvent yourself? And then, because I know that become a point with you, mate, as well, where you then had to reinvent yourself and approach brands as opposed to just rely on YouTube money. Was that point for you?
No, that point came halfway through my AMG GTS.
Okay, fine. So not that long after, though.
Not that long after.
Right.
No. Actually, there was definitely some like outstanding invoices that I hadn't been paid for and I was waiting for.
Laziness.
Yeah, but also
no, how slowly brands pay influencers. That's more what it is.
Okay.
There was so right now, as we're recording this, is kind of like into December.
Similar thing.
I've not been paid for work I did in June.
You know I invoice Moneylen, don't you? Well, I mean, it's quite expensive, but I'll invoice
He's
Moneylen.
basically a loan shark. Steer clear of that guy. Don't interrupt, Tony. Don't distract.
So
come on.
The Gallardo. In that time, I sold my R8, I bought a Lamborghini, I drove a LaFerrari as well when I was like 24. All of this in the daily vlogs. It all came about and I had earned a strong amount of money on YouTube the first time that I discovered daily vlogs as I bought the Gallardo. And YouTube at the time paid 45 days after the end of the month. So let's say I had started to daily vlog in September and I'd earn, in theory, all of this money in September from selling the R8, buying the Lamborghini, driving the LaFerrari in 30 videos. I'd seen how much money I'd earned that month, but I wasn't getting paid that until middle of November. So when we were doing the road trip in October, I didn't have any money.
So how does it work now? Is it like that now still? Changed?
It's 30 days, isn't it?
30 days after, yeah.
Right.
So you get paid the month after.
So there was that delay, and it was a real sort of steep learning curve for me in terms of business and cash flow. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know where we were.
So
we went off on a
you
tangent.
said the AMG GTS changed your mindset from I need to reinvent or think of another way to bring money in or to run my business.
Well, really, brands landed on my doorstep.
They approached you.
There really wasn't I didn't know it existed. So the first brand that ever approached me was Shell. And I had it.
Love Shell on this podcast. Just FYI.
Is that what happened to you, mate, as well?
Yeah.
Same for brands approached you? Or?
I think initially, as we were starting our YouTube journey, none of us knew that brand campaigns beyond, in my head, PR, which was free, would be a thing, would be an opportunity. Of course, that's how brands work with celebrities. I didn't think they would ever look to influence on big paid campaigns the way, at least in the automotive space. So yeah, early days, you started earning with brands a bit before me, but some of the early sort of people reaching out and stuff. It was like, hey, we want you to promote our new V-Power and we'll pay you 500 quid to do it.
I always thought it was the other way around initially, as in you boys went out and approached them.
No, not at all.
Right. Okay.
So the conversation I had with Shell was this phone call where they were telling me how cool it was. It was down at the Top Gear test track, which I don't think I'd ever been to before. They were creating this assault course and you got to drive a BMW X5 and it was all to do with their new Shell V-Power fuel. And I was like, amazing. This is so cool. They were like, all we need you to do is film a YouTube video and post 2 Instagram contents. And I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, and the fee's 1,500 quid. And I went,
oh my God, that pays for my car.
No. I thought I had to pay 1,500 quid to do the day.
Oh.
It sounds good, but not that good.
And I said, I was like, I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I don't think I'm going to earn 1,500 quid from my YouTube video and the views and posting 2 Instagram photos. And they're like, no, like, you don't pay that. That's what you get paid. I was like, what? I was like, 1,500 quid for a day's work turned out to be longer than a day's work because obviously everything that goes along with it. But that was the first time that I had a paid brand reach out to me, and that's how new it was and how alien it was to me, that I genuinely thought that the fee was what I paid to partake in the day.
And actually, when you actually think about that 1,500 quid, as much money it is, for the exposure the brand would have got at that point, you had a big following at that point, right? That's pennies.
Without going off on a tangent and without being aggressive about it, the creative industry, the online creator, still gets so underpaid in terms of exposure and brand awareness, because if you go traditional advertising or even celebrity advertising, it is 10 times the amount that some creators will get paid.
And not Target.
Oh yeah,
it's not Target, mate.
Yeah. And not endorsed in the same way.
Yeah.
So the brand work starts coming in, as we've talked about with Tim and with myself. You know, it's a sort of new era for social media, at least. But what I would say is now you're definitely one of the best people I've ever seen in terms of pitching to a brand creative ideas. So if a company says, "Oh, we want to work with you," or "We've got this product we want to promote," in that room, and a week later when you're sending that email, I've always thought that you're one of the best people at putting together some kind of thing that they love. Like, there's never a sort of, "Oh, this is what I think will work." But whatever you seem to pitch, they go, "Yes, great." And sometimes they're like, "They are never going to buy into that." And then you call me and I go, "Yeah, they've gone for it. They love it." Like, and we saw it with the R8 when you managed to convince these kind of relatively small companies to buy into this idea. Did you feel like have you realized that you have an inept ability to pitch like that? Did you have that confidence? Like, when did that switch? Because that's what I see you doing more and more of now, is being able to get these mega ideas and campaigns away with brands.
Well, thank you very much. Very, very kind words, sir.
Well, trying.
Honestly, so my 30th birthday was January this year. In the summer of this year, we were in lockdown. January we were in lockdown, so my mum did like a little garden party for all of my family to come to in the summer, and she keeps everything. So I basically walked into my old house where my mum had plastered all of my drawings. I'd written books, and literally it was like, Paul, age 6, and the book was about the life of a lion. And I literally at 6 years old, like, I would be talking about lions reproducing. I'd be talking about, like, I literally loved to create anything. Like, I would draw for hours when I was a kid, and that turned into, during school, I did drama, I did PE, I did graphics, I did art. I literally picked everything that was creative. So I can imagine that's really where it started from. But the one thing that I think I've maintained consistency in throughout my YouTube life, whether I've enjoyed elements of it or not enjoyed elements of it, is I've always had like almost like a dream video shot list of things that I would love to film. And again, like going back, they just get like bigger and more excessive, which obviously requires more budget. So I don't know. I don't know why or what it is that has enabled me to be able to do that. But I also remember like very early days when we were sort of getting to know each other and hanging out and going to various places. I remember pitching to brands and dealerships about ways in which I could own cars without owning them, if that makes sense. Like,
long-term loans or something.
I think you pitched that to me more. I think you both did.
But there was always ways that I was looking to kind of minimalize outgoing costs to try and maximize everything that I was getting. And I reckon up until probably like 2019, I reinvested 100, if not 110% of anything that I earned back into like doing more stuff. Which now, when I look back on it, probably wasn't the most efficient way of doing it.
Okay, so let's bring you right up to date. There's 3 questions I have for you. What are your goals?
We also miss drifting.
Well, no. This is the question. What are your goals? What's your inspiration now? Like you kept saying that you kind of got to this point where you're like, well, what do I do now? I've reached that goal, reached that dream. Do you have more goals or dreams? So what's that? Yes. Big question number 2. What happened to the drifting? Like, because
I have actually addressed this.
Okay, well, we're going to address it on this
Sam Moore's
podcast. We're going to address it on this podcast.
Check out Sam's
because we get more listeners than Sam. Although I do really love Sam's podcast, so I shouldn't say things like that. But yeah, so what happened with the drifting? And then thirdly and finally, how do you sum up 10 years as Supercars of London? Because are we still in the 10th anniversary now, or we're 11 years?
No. We're 13 or 14.
Oh wow, sorry. Okay, well,
yeah.
I missed that.
I mean, I heard 2004, 2005.
Sorry, my
so
maths
you're like
is bad.
15 years
Okay.
or something.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, on YouTube, it's been 15 or 16.
Yeah.
years.
Okay, sorry,
more
that
than
was
half my life.
Totally my bad. So yeah, so I say, what are your goals now? What happened to the drifting? And as a sort of, you sit here, wise old man of YouTube, are you like, cool, I smashed it, I've been there, or is it like, I'm fucking as, I'm as
What's happened to me?
I won't forget to bleep that because we're 1 hour 20 in. But I'm more motivated and ready than ever to tackle this in a different way. So yeah, go. 1, 2, 3.
Drifting first. We go back to the idea of pitching ideas, pitching creatives. And one of the things that I fell in love with from experiencing was going sideways in a car.
I remember vividly, because we were friends then.
Yeah.
I remember vividly you saying to me, mate, I'm going drifting.
I'm going to become a pro drifter.
Yeah,
I remember all these conversations.
It was, and probably still is, although I've got much more of a fear factor now. One of the coolest experiences and feelings that you can have in a car. So I had a campaign with Mercedes and we were ice driving, and they pitched to me, this was way before I got into the drifting stuff, they pitched to me that I was going to break the world record for the longest drift, which was I think about 1.5 kilometers on ice. So that was really like the starting point of where this idea came from. So I went out and I learned car control on ice. I created these 2 wicked videos with Mercedes. They also got a cool video, which was, I think still to this day, one of their highest performing collaborations that they've done on the Mercedes-Benz YouTube channel.
You had a film crew and all that, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Proper pro level.
It was unbelievable experience. And I basically came back and I spoke to my manager and I said, I want to do that. That is the next 10 years. I want to document going from grassroots
Tony's already laughing.
up to being the best drifter in the world. I looked at Ken Block and what he was doing, and I was like, if there was the story of how he got there online, that would be amazing. So I then started to rally my brain, because again, like, I didn't have like bottomless pits of cash to go, this is how I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to fund it. And drifting, even though you're fundamentally buying £500 like £1,000 cars, is still expensive because you have to modify them, you have to constantly supply tires.
Oh, and I'm sure at the top level you're spending hundreds of thousands on drifting.
Yeah.
Still
and more.
Yeah.
So my business brain merged with the creative was, okay, who do I know that has like the ability to support this financially? So I had Monster, Ford.
Oh yeah.
And who was the other one? I feel bad now. But anyway, I had 6 to 8 months worth of meetings. This was to me, the one mistake that I made on YouTube. I always said to myself, you cannot talk about something unless it is 100% confirmed. Because otherwise, the amount of times that you're going to go, guys, I'm doing this, and if it's not confirmed and it falls through, you're going to look like an idiot. And this really was like a big F up, because I'd announced this with Mercedes because I got excited about all of the ice driving, that this is what I was going to do. On the 10-year anniversary of Supercars of London, it tied in perfectly. I backed myself that I would pull everything through. And we had Ford, we had Monster, we had another brand, and it was in excess of 250 grand in sponsorship for this series.
You achieved that sponsorship?
That was going to run for 2 years, and it was going to document as a TV documentary series on Monster's YouTube channel Ford were going to supply the car and also cash, and that was going to fund it. And Monster pulled out because they freaked out that they were funding me on a day one journey, that they were terrified that I'd never be accepted into the world of drifting, having all of the support right from the word go, to the point where if I do become like this pro, no one is going to give me the credibility because, well, that's the excuse they told me anyway. And from that, everything started to pull down by the wayside. And this was at the time where I just bought C63 from you. And I was trying to release as much money as I could to buy my first property with my girlfriend. So I was trying to move on, like on a personal level. I was trying to get the next chapter in. So I didn't have really any of my own money that was like liquid cash that I could go, oh, do you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go and buy a drift car myself. And it just, the timing on everything just nothing matched up. I lost the opportunity of having these sponsors in, and it was around the time that I was going through the whole mortgage process, so I couldn't spend any money to buy a drift car and go and do it myself. And it was like the hardest thing well, I basically buried my head in the sand on that whole series because there was no other way that I could get around it. I couldn't explain at the time because it was such sensitive information that these brands had pulled out, that was the kind of route that I was going down. I didn't really know which way to explain it online. But for me, the biggest priority was obviously getting this flat. Like, me and my girlfriend had committed so much to it, and I just sold my Lamborghini Huracan. I bought the C63 to try and reduce some of the outgoings that was going on. And I genuinely had kind of planned at least the next 2 years, both financially and from a content point of view, that was what's going to happen.
From the drifting.
And when everything started to fall apart, I didn't have a plan B.
Okay, so you were left a little bit in the lurch. Go on, Tony, what were you going to say?
So at that point then, do you think, you said you buried your head in the sand, do you think you lost your way a bit then at that 100%, point? 100%. And then do you feel that at that point the channel suffered as well?
Yeah, 100%. Because up until that point, there were many moments where I kind of lied awake at night going, I've done everything, every decision I make goes right. Nothing that I've really done has gone wrong. When is that going to happen? Yeah. So I was questioning myself, and that was the moment where it went wrong, because up until that point I had really filmed everything as like everyone knew me. Like, they could walk up to me in the street and feel like they were my mate. They knew almost everything about me. I did my best to hide my family and my private life away from it.
So you should.
But everything else was out there in the open, and people were coming up to me, and I really, really felt like everyone was coming up to me and super friendly, as if they were my best mate from school. And the moment that I had to hide something from my audience, I felt like I was doing them a disservice, but I couldn't do anything about it.
And it was supposed to be the next chapter.
Yeah,
right? You say 10 years. Because I remember that's how you were sort of presenting it to me. It was like, because I, as a sort of motorsport fan, and also your mate, was like, dude, what the like? You ain't got hope in hell. Like, there are people who've been doing this for like 15 years, and you're just going to turn up one day and be like, hey guys, I'm a pro drifter.
Yeah.
But you were like, no, but this is, as you say, it's a 10-year journey. This is a whole narrative and storyline, and this is the new chapter for Supercars of London. And you were sort of saying to me, you felt like you'd done what you wanted to in the Supercars, and so I definitely felt for you and saw, as that fell away, how I think anyone who, Tony, if you were starting up a whole new showroom in Newcastle or whatever, or I was setting up a new podcast in French, I don't know, whatever, and if it falls away, if a new business doesn't succeed, that's a bitter blow, especially when you're all in. So I guess that brings me back to my other two questions. So where are you now? What's the motivation or goal now, in or outside of YouTube?
It's become, as I've kind of grown up, I feel like I've matured quite well off camera, or I'd like to think, but at the same time I do question what the last 10 years, the effect that the last 10 years has had on choosing to do YouTube, as cool as it is. Like, I do kind of I worry about certain situations and stuff.
Do you care less now
about YouTube, or do I care less about my? Yeah,
fair.
In terms of growth, in terms of engagement, in terms of content.
Growth 100%, because I know that YouTube control those goalposts and they move them all of the time. That's one of the things that I think as I've matured, I've started to learn. And my goal probably from 2016, 2017 is, rather than chase numbers, is like I'm so happy with where I am now and who watches my videos now. So as long as I can entertain the people that watch it now, that's all I try and do. And
actually that is really, from someone looking outside in, it's something I really like about you. You're not in the machine. You don't chase numbers. You don't really look at algorithms. You're not really interested in that point, because from a mental point, and we spoke about it a little bit, mate, but from a mental point of view, when you're in that machine, I mean,
it's terrifying.
It is.
It's hell.
It's hell, and it absolutely takes you over. So, to be fair, you've done well. Just that bit alone,
to get out,
to not be in, not be in it.
I identified YouTube, I'd say, when I was probably in my Gallardo ownership. So I was 24. The first thing I identified was, if I'd been given this growth and rate of success, because YouTube basically give it to you. They identify channels that are performing well, that have high engagement, and then they just throw people at you.
Yeah.
So the growth is somewhat unauthentic to an extent. They dangle the carrot and then they pull it away when
they feel like it.
When they feel like it.
Yeah.
I identified, I think it was Gallardo, so it would have been like 2014, that YouTube don't understand what they've created and the power that they're giving to people. I said back then, if I'd had this level of success and growth at the age of 18, where I would probably be buying a supercar at 19, 20, I'd probably be dead.
Yeah,
is the first thing that I said. But also the mental games that YouTube play with you, which I've not really talked about too much because I'm quite scared to. At the same time, I document the highs of my day and the highs of my life, which is what I've always tried to do. I always feel like I don't have a voice to then share the lows, because the highs are really high and then the lows are really low. So the sort of identification of not chasing numbers on a screen, and the realization that I had where I'd wake up and my day would be affected by numbers on a screen, was the day that I realized that I can't have this dictate the way that I feel, because going back to the way that this blurs with your personal life, it then affects everything.
Oh, it takes over.
Yeah. So to be able to recognize that and not necessarily get out, but step away from it and detach myself away from the numbers and stuff. My sole goal has always been, if I enjoy the video that I create, once I've edited it, do I enjoy what I've created? They're the two criteria that I have. If I'm proud of that video, I'll upload it and hope that the audience that are currently there, sitting there and watching it, enjoy it too. Then to me, like I'm happy with that.
Fair.
Okay, well, to wrap things up then, the sort of final part is I guess, is where does one go from here? Obviously, co-host of After the Checkered Flag, I mean, pretty big moment in anyone's life, and a huge amount of opportunity, especially as moving into next year with Lawrence Stroll as a full sponsor.
Really?
No, we wish. Paul's been angling for that for 1 year.
Because he hasn't replied to my DM
I'm
yet.
leaving.
Yeah, no.
No, that's the Martin sponsor.
We'll have a huge Aston Martin logo. It'd be brilliant. But yeah, no, so you know, as I say, do you look back fondly? Is there anything that you would change, and where do you go from? What can people expect? If people who maybe have dripped out for a few years, or they've just joined you now, you know, what's the plot and plan, I guess?
What's the future?
What's the future?
Do you want there to be a
question.
future?
I always said, not on camera, I always said that I would stop. I want to stop YouTube by 30.
Oh God! Well, mate, close the channel down now.
Here I am.
Well past it.
But at the same time, so I think COVID has changed my perception on a lot of things. And one thing that I really struggled with was burning out. and basically getting to the point where I almost like would throw up at the thought of having to go and film, because it was just so constant, the thought process in what am I going to film, how am I going to film it, when am I going to upload it, how's everything going to be associated to that. It was around Goodwood Festival speed every year.
Also as the competition built, I think we both openly struggled with that. It was as more channels opened and started up, what our voice was, what our angle, what our perspective was, and I think we shared that.
Neither of us are motivated by like what car to buy next. Here's the next car. What am I going to do with it?
Hashtag exclusive.
It's not how you run your channels, though, boys, is it? It's not how you operate.
I've still got a dream shot list for 2022.
Nice.
Of things that I want to achieve, content that I want to create. But also, I think over the last 3-4 years, as I've got older, a lot of my personal life, my goals have changed with that as well. So there are a lot of things that I've tried to do while still running everything on YouTube, and COVID in a way helped but didn't help, in terms of I've massively cut back the amount of content that I used to upload. So it used to be like at one point obviously it was 7 videos, it then dropped down to 5, it then dropped down to 3, it dropped down to 2, and just to sustain like a strong mentality, I dropped back to 1 video, which
a month.
One video a week. And what that has like really allowed me to do is find a better balance between my personal life and then running the business. And next year, like I'm looking forward to December and January. Like the stuff that I've got lined up for December and January actually motivates me like to get excited for it. And then going into like Q1, Q2 next year, focusing on a couple of cool road trips, one in the UK, which I don't think like I've done properly. Actually gone and visit other cities in the UK and experience the car scene there. I'm going to be over in LA, which I can't wait for now that travel has somewhat opened up. Who knows?
For now,
who knows?
Get there quick.
Who knows where we're going to be? But next year as well, like personally, will probably be like one of the best in my life. And I'm working towards a few longer term goals, which will affect Supercars of London and the YouTube channel in a good way. And that's probably the easiest way that I can describe it.
Well, it's been a fairly insane story and journey, I think. You know, we didn't even touch on the fact that, of course, LP640, dream car that you owned.
Yeah, that literally bucket list.
Bucket list to own a car by Lamborghini by 25, and you've owned 2 by 30.
Yeah.
Three. Oh my God. Bloody hell. Sorry, I even forgot.
But the Murcielago was, if you go back to the Gallardo where I woke up the day after and I was like, what do I do now? Like I've literally achieved the goal. The Murcielago was that 20 times, because that was like,
because also it's awful.
Yeah.
You wake up and go, what have I done?
I bought this
Sam and Tony trying to talk me out of it, but for some reason I just went and bought one.
Nah, that is the greatest car I've ever owned.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
But like again, like I
to look at.
I had a real hard time
driving it?
knowing what to do next.
No, fair enough. Well, we're excited, aren't we, Tony, for the next chapter? For sure.
For sure. And do you know what? Just before we go, a question for both of you, actually. Do you think YouTube is a young man's game now?
I think it's always been a young man's game, I'd have to say.
Yes and no. I feel like there have been, especially in the automotive space, some really amazing creators that have come in that have maybe had a slightly different life to begin with. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at Harry Metcalf and Johnny Smith, like for me,
for sure, like
they are 2 guys who like they would like to think that they're young, but in the grand scheme of things, you get 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, you get bloody 7-year-olds. Like the stuff that my niece watches on YouTube, they have like 29 million subscribers and they're like 5.
Oh, the kids ones
it's nuts.
It's nuts. So I think purely on the journey that I've had, the more the thrill that I get and the best experiences have come from when I'm much younger. But I think in life in general, I think if you look back on your early 20s, like what you were doing, what you were getting up to, the majority of people would say,
I was grafting.
Yeah, but I think age gives you wisdom, right? I think my flip is, it's not a young man's game in terms of being online. It's the creator element. It's the running of a channel. And I think some of those older channels, I actually don't know how Johnny runs his channel, but Harry, I know, for example, has helped filming, even though it's a fairly basic setup and he's absolutely killing it in terms of Harry's garage. I think to have that mentality, that enthusiasm, it helps to have someone who's got that thrive, that energy, that creativism. It's definitely not just a young man's game.
It'd be nice to get Harry on here, actually.
I would love to get Harry, but I know he doesn't tend to do too many collaborations.
Fair.
He's a super nice guy. I've loved talking to him whenever I've talked to him, and he's fascinating insight.
Yeah.
But when I floated doing some collab stuff, totally within his own right, he's like, look, I focus on what I do, and I've got plenty of other stuff going on. But I'll drop him a note and see again, because fascinating guy. But anyway, well, look. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, brother.
Being so open. we tried our best not to be too cruel, but I think it was super interesting. I've known, we've all known that your story has been super interesting, and your career online has been very varied, and because it's gone on for so damn long, I'm aware that audience members would have encountered you at different times and followed different parts of the journey.
For me, it sounds like I'm like, this is it.
No, yeah. Goodbye.
I do
was it years ago.
I do look at it and like think in terms of, I wouldn't change anything.
No,
I wouldn't change anything. And actually, the life that I've been lucky enough to live and the stuff that I've been able to do, the places I've been able to travel, if you'd told me that when I was 16 years old or whatever, that I'd get to 30 and have done everything like this, I firstly wouldn't have believed them. But it's kind of nuts when I speak to friends outside of YouTube and kind of share stories.
Just what you've been able to do.
Yeah, crazy.
The audience would have noticed I've been staring at the camera for about the last half an hour because the battery's flashing and I'm so nervous it's going to go off. So we're going to wrap it up because I've really been freaking out we're going to lose this. But thank you for coming by. If you guys have enjoyed it, if you want to catch up on what Paul's been doing recently or follow those future ventures, because as he's teased, he is going to be doing some big exciting things in 2022. He's of course
with you guys.
Of course, after Super Flag at Supercars of London or at Wallace PJW, Tony at Tony Gravel Car Sales, myself at Seen Through Glass, and we will be back with you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.